Welcome back to the table. We are painting a little scene that I put together based off of an essential oil blend I recently created. The blend is a beautiful, warming mixture of all the gorgeous things that came to mind as we are working through the saltwater, soul surfing, and landmarks theme for this term. Now, my mornings always start early and I watch the sunrise, and today gave me the most beautiful color ideas. Looking at everything this morning, I just feel super inspired to continue the journey and tag you along as I grab a quick cup of coffee, look outside my window, and realize that this is the perfect moment to show you how to create a page in your aroma journal. I've got all my things on, and I can put that fabric over and hide the mess. So I can shove all of these things in there, but this is officially my corner. And yesterday in the mail, I just got home from Briag when I got this book in the mail. It is an illustrated book by the author is Christine Paxman, but the illustrator was Olaf Hajek, something like that. Flower Power, and isn't it beautiful? Have a quick look here. So all of these illustrations were done in either Procreate or Affinity or even Fresco, because you can, well, I know that this is digital, but it's done with different brushes you can create yourself on the iPad, which makes it a really portable way to do art. But even though I've been doing that for a couple of years, I still always go back to my sketchbooks. So let's put this in the stand and get to the aroma journal for today. Out of all my color swatches, I selected these 6 colors. They are also part of the Jean Haynes or Daniel Smith color selection, and some of them also come from the current colors in that little palette right on the right side of my arm. And I love working this way because I can separate them and see exactly what I want to use and know how to keep my mind on track when I'm trying to stay within a color palette. So you can quickly go ahead and print that page so that you have your documents ready for today. In the big PDF that's available for members only, you will see that I discuss every single oil used in my special blend, along with three, I think 3 or 4 ways to use this blend, and also why I selected each of the oils. So let's put the color aside for now. Get your drawing onto your sketchbook. Now, how I was inspired was I kept looking backwards to all the art and beautiful things I've already created. And because we have a theme of salt water, I decided to bring in a little ocean view with mountains, beautiful sunset sky we saw this morning, and of course, make this part of that whole romanticized dream life that's going on here in my heart. Now, I gathered inspiration from one of my old sketchbooks where I took this little trellis gate, the sunset, the roses growing, and also a memory I have of a beachfront home I one day want to live in, and put all of these beautiful things together. I also asked the ladies from Briag to help me out with a name. And we came up with several ideas, and I took those ideas and put them together to create Sublime. Isn't Serenity. That just magical? Anyway, grab a large flat brush so we can start with this background sky. And I am going to use gold, but not this gold. I'm going to use a gold from the Gansai Tambi series instead, because it just fits better in my hand, and it's small and it's more accessible for everybody. And you probably have one already. So wetting that paint was helpful in the beginning, because now it's nice and loose, and I'm just keeping my color here to one side. Oops. Let me erase the word, because I don't want to paint over that. I'll rather draw the word back later than have it stuck underneath the watercolor. So we start with yellow, just a few strokes. Don't work it into the paper, just gently place it onto the paper. So you'll see I'm not working wet in wet here. I'm adding the wetness as I'm going. I've learned how to control the wetness, and because of that I could still get beautiful blends, delicate transitions between colors. And that's what we're looking for here, is a delicate transition between the colors without mixing them, because mixing them means we are going to have a different color appear, and I'd like to stay within that 6 color range we just did. A few brush strokes into that wet yellow will give you the illusion of clouds. Now, can you hear the birds in the background? They are singing along this morning as I had this beautiful sunrise appear, and that just, I was almost torn between, should I stay and watch the sunrise complete its coming out for the morning, or should I go and sit down, or come and sit down here and finish this painting, or in our case, get to the painting. Anyway, just loosely go around those flowers. You may recall that I like to draw my sketches on my sketchbooks with water-soluble pencils. And that is so that the whole drawing can dissolve underneath my water brush and sort of disappear into the scene. But if I add very little pressure and very little amount of paint, some of those lines really show through. Now I'm doing a little experiment here with some masking fluid, and I can already tell that I'm not going to like the results. So I'm not even going to go there or talk about it. By the end, I'm going to take that off and create a little separate boat or sailing vessel that I will stick on there as a collage, along with the roses that is on the PDF. Now you can get to cutting out yours if you've painted your scene already, or you can leave them for another project. It's all up to you. Another thing I didn't include as a collage are these little shells. I'm painting under them now and around them, but you can paint your own little shells. Take yourself on this little shell making experiment and just create them as best you can. Just lightly cutting into those shell shapes, let me say that right, to outline them. And then, I'm not happy with that masking fluid blob I did there. But I am going to continue, add some accents to that mountain, and bring in, so this is where I'm contemplating. and wondering if I should paint each of these flowers and leaves exactly or just add the green there so that I have a base to put my collage elements onto. Here's what I mean. If I cut these out, they are going to be a focal point, and I don't want to put them on something that's already in focus. So these flowers and leaves are going to melt into the background. And I want them to melt in because I want the new collage elements that I'm going to put over it to be the focal point. Now, it's just a little brush stroke here and there filled with that one green. I'm not mixing up any greens. I'm not trying to draw attention to any of these. And where possible, I'm going to make them almost blend into that background. They can touch each other, they can melt, they can move, and they can even disappear. I just want a slight indication of green leaves and pink roses. All right, just a little mark here and there, and we're almost done with the green. You'll see that it's just a brush stroke. It's not a fully painted leaf. I'm letting it happen naturally without forcing a proper leaf to form. Time now to add the pinks to the roses, and I am going to mix up a couple of pinks and reds here and blob them in the middle of each of those roses, and you'll see why in a second. So you may recall that I like to paint these loose whimsical roses, and they all have a darker center with a washed out petal edge. And on this side I'm just cleaning the brush off, making sure those last little bits of pink are just put into the right rose places without adding any detail whatsoever. So around this first set of blobs I put down, I added yellow, and I'll continue that inside the roses while it's wet on the other side. It's just to liven them up a little bit so they don't look plain pink and boring, and also make sure I use the color selections that we've come up with for this piece. I think I'll make the shells both the same color. They are playing a very small role in this image, just as a reminder that we are looking at an ocean themed view here instead of a rose garden, if you know what I mean. Just adding little bits of yellow to fill those gaps. There's still green on my brush here. I'm just adding a little bit of accent so that we have interesting little spots between our roses. Now, I realized that iron gate with the trellis detail is really looking through the trellis at the ocean, which means we'll have to fix something here in this scene. And I'm going to start off by taking some of that pink and putting it in there, trying to wet that area, soften that arch that I painted around before, and just strengthening the pink a little bit so that I can somehow redeem that view that I completely forgot about. Somehow my brain didn't register that I'm going to see through the gate to the ocean. Okay, so for now, it looks like I've done a fairly alright job here, and that we'll be able to see the ocean through the gate. Okay, so If you're tracing along, painting along, and following along, make sure to also paint your ocean in the background, or make your iron trellis gate a solid gate. That will also help. Now, a few watery brush marks here and there, and I think I'm ready to rinse my brush and let this dry before I make any more decisions. I think what I'll do is take a little bit of the blue, deepen it with that ultramarine, and paint in the seagulls. Now, these don't have to be accurate, and as a matter of fact, this first one almost looks like it's jarred its tail, but it doesn't matter. The seagulls are not the main focus, and therefore you can sort of mess about when finishing them up and keep your paint light. We don't want these black shadows drifting in the sky. Now, the third one isn't a seagull, it is an albatross. Now, an albatross is one of the Atlantic greats, as it has a wingspan that is so unimaginable. The great albatross has one of the largest wingspans, and it's one of the largest flying birds. Its wingspan reaches up to 3.5 meters. This is a massive bird that glides on that Atlantic breeze and almost looks like it is floating. So let's loosen up this gold and get our gate painted. Now, mixing this up will give you enough pigment to work with. One mistake I made here was going into the painting while the actual surface of that particular spot wasn't dry enough. You'll see that gold slowly but surely bleeding into that wet background. I guess I was also in a hurry to see what this beautiful golden gate would look like. Now, I'm just going to continue here and not pay much attention to that. I can always come back with a paper towel and lift it out, or just accept it as is, part of the design. This is just a sketchbook after all, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And if I want it to be perfect, I could always paint it on a separate piece of paper, cut it out with my little precision cutter, and then stick it on top of that. I could also leave it and use it as a memory for next time when I'm gathering ideas for projects, to remember to let the first layers dry properly. I'm not going to get upset, and I don't want you to get upset if you make mistakes in your aroma journal. It is just a practice, a playful interaction with you, the recipe, the idea behind the essential oil blend, and also a way for you to keep on your mindful practices in beautiful, creative ways. Don't get bogged down by detail or too much emphasis on what you did wrong. It's all right, and it will turn out all right. So, grab every stroke and make it count. Create the twirl, slow down, and see how that gold bounces off the blue, almost like yellow and blue play with each other in those starry night skies that Van Gogh painted all those years ago. It must have been mesmerizing doing that. Almost the same way this is mesmerizing. And can you see how I keep on going back into that wet puddle, not redeeming myself, but making it worse? So I am going to remember this moment and do the next Golden Gate with much more care and precision, because I have now learned that keeping on putting more and more paint into that wet areas is a mistake that I could have easily prevented had I stayed a little bit more conscious of what I was doing. At this stage, it finally occurred to me that I could actually lift off all the wetness there and put down somewhat better stroke. The damage was still done, but I feel better after realizing I could have fixed it much earlier. So, while we're in that moment, it's sometimes difficult to see that we are continuing the wrong action. And the minute you notice, it's almost like a relief, as in, okay, I wasn't being wrong or um, not getting it right. It was because I wasn't following a certain set of rules that would have given me a better result. All right. Now, I let the whole thing dry, took a coffee break, and came back to extend the golden trellis fence. So it's just going to peek through this massive rose bush here and there. And if I can just keep this thought going that working on dry paint with gold will give me crisper, clearer results, then all my future gold layering projects will turn out far better than this very first one. Well, it's not my first one, but it's the first time I've made a gold into wet mistake. The next thing I want to address is those awful, awful masking fluid marks on the left. Now, I don't know what I'm going to do with that just yet. So, in the meantime, I'm adding more pink and detail to my roses so that I can think about how I'm going to fix those marks that I half heartedly did in a moment where I thought I'd add more instead of sticking to my general rule of adding less. Now, in a minute, you'll see that I am going to add details to this right side of the roses, which was something I initially said I wasn't going to do. And here I am adding those layers, almost as if I forgot that I wanted to collage on top of that. But now that I'm doing the voiceover, I'm going to put down a reminder to not do the collage on this page and instead use those flowers that was part of the PDF for the sketch in another project that I started a while ago but stopped because I didn't have rose collage to finish it with. But now I can use these rose collages to add to that. And if you give me a second after I finish up some detail work on these shells, I'll quickly I'll quickly show you what I had in mind for an upcoming project. So this time I'm really not adding any extra details to the shells, and I'm keeping it yellow, the same color as the shells, and adding a little bit of a shadow below it, just so that it looks like it is laying on top of a surface instead of floating in the rose bushes. Now, you could look at this with a very critical eye and say, oh, but I made this mistake and I made that mistake and didn't do this right. But it really doesn't matter. We can always go back, turn another page, try the techniques again, and also improve on our own design. What's important is that we had fun. We made time for creativity, and we enjoyed the techniques, whether we are learning, improving, or continuing our journey. There's always something to learn, and whatever you want to learn depends on your willingness to actually make those mistakes so that that learning process can evolve. Now, where I put these masking fluid marks to me looks like a complete disaster. And no matter how much I'm trying to fix it or add water to soften those lines, I am unhappy with the outcome. And look here, again, going into wet and smudging it with the gold that was on my finger. Oh my word. So, anyway, I'm going to give this a rest. Come back to it later, like now, when I saw with new eyes all the beautiful areas that I do like, and that I can now use my essential oil blend to feel excited and happy about the coming journey that is going to evolve in my sketchbooks and in my creative mindful practices. I hope you enjoyed our paint along session for today and that your blend turns out beautiful. Don't ever forget to dream and be imaginative. Create with random ideas, bring all kinds of concepts together. And just look at what we did here. We brought in that morning sunrise. We used a imaginary scene, an iron gate turned gold, and climbing rose bushes with seashells in them. Seagulls flying in the wind, wishing they were albatrosses. We have so much to be grateful for. There's a lot of beauty in our world, and I hope you get to see that through your golden gate.